Okay, our next speaker is Allison Zadrozny, speaking from Austin, Texas. She is a front-end engineer for One More Cloud, and today is talking about Elasticsearch for Jekyll. Allison, over to you. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Hey, JekyllConf. It's good to be here. I'm speaking about how to use Elasticsearch for your Jekyll site, and we're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to set up my screen share here. All right. Elasticsearch for Jekyll. The main way we're going to be doing this is using a new gem that we created at One More Cloud called Searchel. And I just want to talk a bit about the problem that a lot of us that love Jekyll and we use it, and I use it for my own personal blog, and we use it for our company blog, and but most sites don't have search. Search is complicated. It's a hard problem, and it's a very broad subject. And there are other solutions out there for search for Jekyll, and they're great solutions. But I wanted something a little bit more powerful, and my blog really needs search. And I don't want to have to move off of Jekyll to have something really cool and really powerful. And yeah, not having search on your Jekyll blog, it's really sad. You don't want to have to click around, and you just want to get to the content really fast and really easy. So we're going to fix this problem. When I submitted my talk for JekyllConf, I was like, all right, now we have to go build this. I'm going to finally add search to my blog. So we set out to integrate with my site and make some awesome search happen. And there are many requirements that I wanted. I wanted it to be able to support full text search, not just the titles or like partial things or anything like that. I wanted to search the entire content. I wanted fast queries. I wanted it to be powerful. I wanted it to be able to use interesting JavaScript UI stuff to have type ahead find, highlighted results so that users could really connect with the thing that they were searching for and be able to decide what they needed to click on in terms of articles. I also wanted to be able to filter articles using things that I declared in my front matter, so that it would be very simple and easily integratable with Jekyll. I wanted it to be able to for people to be able to use it if they're hosting on GitHub pages. A lot of the search options out there, you have to use AWS or Heroku or whatever to host your Jekyll site. Me personally, I do host on AWS because I'm using other plugins, but I wanted people that were just using a simple Jekyll site to be able to use this particular setup so that they could add search. And then lastly, I wanted it to be completely open source and customizable so that you didn't have to use anything else but the code that other people had. So there's a lot of requirements, but a month later, we got it to work, with all the other stuff going on at work. But yeah, now I have like really badass search on my Jekyll blog, and I'm going to do a live demo here about what that looks like. And this is my site. I'm going to refresh here. And as you can see, I've got a little search box here. That is a little React component that's interacting with my Elasticsearch cluster. And let's just search for Jekyll. Got a couple of blog posts here. As you can see, it's highlighting my results in my title. And then it's also giving me results back on the actual post that I've written with highlights in there. And it's full text, so it's not it's not showing up any weird HTML or Markdown, but just the text from the blog post. So that's exciting. And then I can also do things like I want to get rid of anything that has the word people in it. Or other things to highlight. So now you can see all these other highlights. There's still some kinks. I'm just new to SearchKit, so really exciting stuff though. And then this is in development. I want to be able to use the front matter on my posts. So you can see I have a post here, and it's got some YAML front matter here, tags life and teaching, and some other stuff. And I wanted to be able to add that to my search. And SearchKit has this really nice filter, refinement list filter, that you can pass in the field that you are, here it is, that you want to filter by. So I have tags here, because in the JSON it's sending tags. And then if I search for Jekyll, it's got, yeah, the only thing with code. But maybe I want to search code and see what pops up. Make a square, some other stuff. And you can see 8 posts here, 6 posts there. So yeah, really cool. It returns different results based on the tags that you press. So really, really exciting. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. There are some kinks in it still, but it's working really beautifully for basic search and some filtering and highlights. So really, really exciting. So yeah, so I'm Allison. I work at One More Cloud. We host Bonsai, hosted Elasticsearch, and also WebSolar, hosted Solar. Those are our 2 products. And if you've ever deployed a site on Heroku, you might have seen our add-ons there. Bonsai and WebSolar are popular add-ons there. So yeah, those are our products, and yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, so to build this, to finally put a search box on my site, I use Elasticsearch via Searchable, and then I'm also using React, which I mentioned earlier, and those React components are coming in through SearchKit. So the structure of how we're going to talk about how to build this is I'm going to talk a little bit about Elasticsearch and why I decided to use it. I'm going to talk about what you need in order to build this on your own site, and then the 3 parts of how to get it to work on your site. So how do I get stuff into Elasticsearch using the gem searchable? I'm going to talk a little bit about how searchable works under the hood. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about how you can integrate React and SearchKit to get stuff out of Elasticsearch on the front end and get your users getting nice results. So why Elasticsearch? You know, Elasticsearch, obviously, I'm coming from a place where we host Elasticsearch, but actually I didn't really have a lot of experience with it before I delved into this project. I was mostly a Rails and just Ruby Jekyll person and doing some random React stuff. So this has been a real learning experience for me, and I've really enjoyed it. I was able to build something pretty fast. Elasticsearch is, at its core, an open source search engine. It's based on Apache Lucene, just like Solar. It's distributed, it's enterprise grade, and it's scalable. So if you have really small sites to really big ones, it can handle a lot of data, and it can also work for really small use cases. And honestly, it just has a very rich API. It's very developer friendly. It's easy to run queries. There's a ton of documentation and a huge, huge community around it. So it's easy to find what you are looking for. And another reason why we're using Elasticsearch is I think that perhaps it's maybe unintuitive for people to think that you can use Elasticsearch with Jekyll, because maybe the thought is, oh, well, I need a more powerful application in order to run something like Elasticsearch. But the plus side is that Elasticsearch is its own web server. It speaks HTTP, so you can talk to it in many different languages very simply, and we can talk to it via the browser with JavaScript. So it's really, yeah, it's really easy to get started. Okay, so the things that you need to get everything working to add Elasticsearch and to use Searchable with your site is you need a full access Elasticsearch cluster URL. You can get that from a provider, or you can host it yourself. It's devilishly hard to host, so power to you if you're doing that. Number 2, you need a public read-only URL to that same cluster that you're sending data to, because we're going to be using that in our client-side JavaScript to search things. Number 3, you need a Jekyll site with posts to send to Elasticsearch. Of course, I use my own site, alizad.com. And then lastly, which is the hardest part, honestly, is a client-side JavaScript framework in order to search things. And like I said, I'm using React and SearchKit, which was very fast to get up and running. So how do I send stuff to Elasticsearch? Elasticsearch works by posting all of your posts, everything in your data, to an index that you've created on your cluster. So the very basics to get everything into Elasticsearch is you're going to add the searchable gem to your gem file. It's up on RubyGem, so it's really easy to add. You also need to add searchable to your config YAML, and we have some options for your setup. You also need to wrap content that you want to be able to search in an article tag, and we'll go over that in a second. And then you just run your indexing process through the build. So locally, if you're indexing locally, you just run your Jekyll build command with your bonsai URL as an environment variable, or in production with your whatever your deploy script is with your bonsai URL and your environment. So yeah, just going over that again, adding the gem searchal, and then in your config file we have some options here. You have your URL under Elasticsearch, which is the full access URL, number of shards, replicas, the index name that you prefer to use. I'm using Jekyll. You can use whatever you want. Maybe you want to preface it with something a little bit more differentiating in terms of maybe you're doing something for a client or whatever. And your default type, this is an Elasticsearch concern. I'm just calling it post, but you can call it whatever you want. Maybe you're using some interesting use case with like e-commerce and you're selling paintings or whatever, so your default type could be painting, or I don't know. That's the great part about this, is I'm excited to see how people use it. You can see that I added a note here for the URL, for Elasticsearch full access URL. It depends on your use case. So I personally do not put that URL variable in my config file because if you have a full access URL, it has some credentials on it before the host, and you just kind of figure out how you're going to manage that secret. I index locally by using that URL in my environment variable when I'm running that command. I actually, one night, when I was working on this project, I totally forgot, and I pushed up my config with the Elasticsearch URL in it to my GitHub repo. And my repo is private, but I'm just a little anxious about those things, so I rotated my credentials through our dashboard, and I was glad I did that. But anyway, so maybe you can talk to one of your ops friends and figure out what's the best way to handle that secret. I mentioned earlier, wrapping your content in an article tag. It just lets the way that the hook is generating the content to be sent to Elasticsearch. It tells it to grab all the text within that article, and we are working on making that customizable so that maybe you can add an ID to your tag that you have your content in and whatever. But I'm using it in my layout post. Yeah, and then last thing is running that indexing process from the terminal, either locally or on your deploy. And you can see those commands there. And I've redacted out my username and my password for my credentials for my full access URL. All right, so it would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about how Searchable works, because it's really clean, it's well written. There's a lot of experience and expertise that went into writing it, given just what we know about Elasticsearch. And so I'm really happy with a lot of stuff. It still needs work, but yeah, it's really great. So some of the things, it works off of Jekyll hooks, and it grabs the posts in a post-render phase. We run those posts and the content through Nokogiri to pick up that text in that article tag, and then we send it off to an indexer, which is in a separate RB file, which communicates with Elasticsearch via RubyNet HTTP. And we were thinking about, using the Elasticsearch gem in our project, but we're just indexing our documents. We're not actually using the full Elasticsearch API, so we wanted to reduce dependencies, so that's why we're just using Net HTTP. So the main Jekyll hook that's grabbing the post, as you can see, it's sending posts to the indexer. It grabs all of the data, including that front matter, which I was talking about a use case before where I was using the tags in order to filter my searches, and so that's how I'm getting that, is because I'm posting in all of the data. And we include with that an ID, which for me is the URL. And then as you can see, like I said earlier, we're using Nokogiri to grab the output and then run it through so that we can grab all the text in the article tag. And then we also use gsub to take care of some extra white space. The indexer itself is pretty big, so I didn't want to post in everything into the slide, but it does a lot of really cool things. It follows, it follows best practices when it comes to just how you index to Elasticsearch and how you reindex. It does something called hot reindexing using the alias endpoint for Elasticsearch. It also indexes all of your posts in batches using Elasticsearch's bulk endpoint. That way you're not updating doc by doc to your Elasticsearch cluster, but you're grabbing a batch. That way you don't run into any concurrency limits. And then if you're reindexing, it knows to look at all the old indices under that same cluster that you have, and it deletes it if it's the same alias, which for me would be Jekyll, because I did that in my options for my config file. So this is the Bonsai dashboard, and I just wanted to show you the logs to show you how the indexer is working. So at the very top of these logs is the most recent, and at the bottom is the last, or the oldest. So you can see the first post to a Jekyll endpoint there, and that is the creation of my Jekyll index. And in this situation, I'm re-indexing. I'm not creating my first one. As you can see, I've got some search requests before that. Yeah, so it creates the new index, Jekyll dash, and then it's got a string of numbers associated with the date and the time. So it creates that new index, and then as you can see, it posts a bunch of articles to the bulk endpoint. And then once that is finished, it inspects using the cat endpoint to see if there are other indexes. And then it refreshes the new index with the refresh endpoint to finalize it and allow people to use it. And then it sends our settings in from our config.yaml. And then it does in the alias endpoint here, it does that hot indexing I was talking about, so that while you're re-indexing and sending new data up to your most recent version of your blog, users can still search the old version. So in that, whatever 4 seconds or 3 seconds, they don't have this weird double results or anything. So yeah, so it switches over, and then it deletes any of the other indexes that have that same alias Jekyll, and then it's ready to search. So pretty cool. All right, so we've put everything into Elasticsearch. Our cluster is ready, our index is ready to search, but how do you get stuff out of it? You need that public read-only cluster URL, and you need a JavaScript framework. To set up your project in order to use SearchKit, SearchKit you get through using Node modules. So I had to use Webpack and NPM and integrate that with Jekyll in order to use SearchKit. And it's really easy to do. I'll post a link at the end here to that to a blog that I wrote about how to do that at more detail. So I found using SearchKit that it's a really easy development process. Honestly, I got a search box up on my site and got it up and running in like 15 minutes. It was really, really easy. I've really enjoyed working on it. So I recommend it, basically. I wanted to go over a little bit about how I'm using it. And you can ask me questions about this if anything's confusing. So yeah, to set up your project to use SearchKit, I've already, in this example, set up Webpack and NPM and everything. So you can see that I'm importing React since it's SearchKit's dependency, and I'm also using some of SearchKit's components, no hits, and refinement list filter. And then I'm setting up a SearchKit manager component, constant, by using the public URL that I have listed here, because that's going to show up in my JavaScript. And also, I'm going to create a search component, a big wrapper one called search, and it includes a bunch of SearchKit's components, the SearchKit provider, the search box, and then the generated hits. So I create this component with React, and I didn't have to write any of these components. Like, they just came with SearchKit. And then I'm rendering it in my header. So I'm giving, in my Webpack entry.js, I'm rendering search by getting a document, by getting in a div with an ID of search. And then I'm using it in my header HTML. So in my header HTML, I have a div with ID of search that React knows where to render the component onto. So that's pretty much it. And the only thing left is to talk about, okay, well, this is great. How can I use it on GitHub Pages if it's doing this hook and this indexer thing? And my answer to you is you can still use it. There's a small workaround. You index locally, so you create your index from your local machine, and then you remove Searchal and then push it up to GitHub Pages. Because once you run it locally, it's out there in the wild, and you can use it in your JavaScript. So very, very simple to publish a GitHub Pages. So yeah, this combination was really fun. It kind of works like magic. I was surprised, that's to say the least, but very excited about it. Thank you so much, JekyllConf. This is my first time speaking, and I had fun creating this talk. You can find me on Twitter at AliZad and see my search in action at alizad.com. Yeah, mess around with it, poke around, let me know if something weird happens. You can, if you're excited about this and you're interested in the gem, please fork the project, customize it, collaborate, submit issues. It's in 0.9, and we would love feedback from the community. As I mentioned, I created some blog posts to get ready for this talk about how to use Webpack with Jekyll so that you can integrate with SearchKit. And then I also wrote a blog post just discussing everything that I talked about with this talk, which you can see on my site using Webpack with Jekyll and Elasticsearch for Jekyll. If you go out and you use this, please share it with us. Let us know what's going on. Just hit us up at Bonsai Search. And then I guess the biggest part here is, okay, great, like I can use Elasticsearch, but where am I going to find those URLs and host it? Yeah, I'd love to offer a free developer sandbox cluster to anyone who is here at JekyllConf. We're about to go live with this free development cluster in 2 weeks, but the thing that most people won't get when they sign up for a sandbox cluster is that public read-only feature. And so if you hit me up at Allison at bonsai.io with the subject line of JekyllConf and Bonsai and just give me your email that you signed up with us with at bonsai.io, I'll be very, very happy to enable you to use that public read-only feature so that you can use that for your site. All right, thank you so much, and I guess I will take questions now.
Great, thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen someone using Elasticsearch with Jekyll, so it's really interesting to see your implementation. One thing I really like about your approach is it seems like the whole process you could kind of hack your own stuff in, like you could change the gem if you wanted to modify exactly what it was tracking, and it looks like you've got a lot of easy parameters there to do that already. Mm-hmm. My first question is, you're using Nokogiri to parse the content that you want to be indexed. Mm-hmm. How would that work if I had multiple types of content? Like, let's say I wanted to index a title and the content, or mm-hmm. I wanted to index like multiple types of collections, or I wanted to index a page. Like, how would that work with with your gem?
Yeah, so actually it's sending all of that information to Elasticsearch. That's already in there. So let me actually screen share again and show you what I mean. So really this is just about how you are sending stuff in. As you can see, like all of my stuff is in there, like my title, categories, everything, layout, summary, tags, text. So it's something that you can define in your search.js too.
Awesome.
In my search box, you have query fields, text, title, and ID. Those are just the ones that I put in there. I could also decide, you know what, I also want to search all of my HTML content. I also want to search my tags and have that show up because it's all in there in Elasticsearch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there is that whole, let me see if I've got searchable up. Yeah. This part here, it's doing it for multiple indexers and multiple collections. So, and this is something that we can build out in the future. And this whole article thing, we've got an issue on the gem to make that more customizable from the config YAML. So, yeah. Cool. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. What sort of use cases are you seeing is important for implementing a gem like this? Like, do you have some big documentation website that you're working with, or?
No, honestly, like we just wanted to add search to our own blog. We just have a very simple blog at Bonsai, and we were like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're a search hosting provider. Like, we need to have search on our own blog. But we're like, well, damn it, we're using Jekyll. Like, what do we do? So, we have to use Elasticsearch, and so that was sort of the use case. And also for my own blog, my personal blog, I wanted something. So that was pretty much it. We really are used to doing more full text search, just basic posts. But I could definitely see someone doing something really interesting with collections, if they've got like some sort of product or something. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I feel like the sky's the limit. So.
Yeah, one interesting point Tim Carey in the last talk brought up is, oh no, it wasn't Tim Carey actually. It was Ronan. Is using something like Elasticsearch for doing related posts. Like, that's something I hadn't thought of before. It's not the user doing a search, it's you doing a search on behalf of the user and then presenting that content.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just from my own experience and looking at our analytics, search in Jekyll is a pretty well, like, it gets a lot of traffic, that sort of that term. And I feel like it's a problem in the Jekyll community that hasn't been solved really well. So it's really exciting to see this sort of development. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. We don't have any other questions. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No. I'm so thankful that I got to speak, and thank you for emceeing, Mike. You're doing great, and yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison.
All right. See ya.